Okay, let's dive right into this. Today, we're taking a seriously fascinating journey in this explainer. We're going to trace a direct line from the deep, abstract world of philosophy straight into the highly practical realm of modern psychology. It's a journey all about understanding the very fabric of how we experience the world around us. So ask yourself, do you react to reality or just your interpretation of it? It's a pretty profound thing to think about. I mean, just picture your daily life for a second. Someone cuts you off in traffic, a close friend suddenly seems kind of distant, or maybe your boss gives you some abrupt, unexpected feedback. Are you reacting to the strict, objective facts of what just happened, or are you reacting to the story your brain instantly spun about those facts? The stakes here are absolutely crucial because your answer to this question literally shapes your entire daily experience of life. To really ground this idea, let's look at a bit of art history, specifically Claude Monet's famous series of paintings of the Rouen Cathedral. Monet sat in the exact same spot, painting the exact same physical building day after day. Now, the physical object, that massive, dense stone cathedral, didn't move an inch, right? Yet the shifting light going from the cool break of dawn to those deep, fading shadows of dusk completely altered the visual reality he captured on the canvas. It wasn't the object changing, it was the condition of how it was perceived that shifted everything. And this perfectly illustrates a metaphor we're going to use today, the glasses. On one hand, you have the pure object itself. Let's just say a physical, printed book sitting on a desk. But on the other hand, you have the phenomenon. That is what you actually experience in your mind. If you wear glasses and you take them off, that crisp book instantly becomes a blurry, illegible mess. You aren't experiencing the objective reality of the text anymore. You're experiencing your own subjective blur. The profound realization here is that we rarely engage with the raw object itself. Instead, we're almost always looking through our own subjective and sometimes slightly distorted lens. So the crucial point here is rooted in a concept from the philosopher Edmund Husserl called intentionality. In the study of phenomenology, intentionality is basically the foundational principle that our consciousness is always directed about or at something. Try it right now. Try to think about absolutely nothing. Seriously, go ahead. You can't do it. You're either thinking about the concepts we're discussing, the sound of my voice, or maybe what you're going to have for dinner tonight. Our minds are actively, constantly reaching out and interpreting the world around us. We are essentially perpetual meaning-making machines. Now, luckily for us, this philosophical realization wasn't just left as some dusty academic exercise. It actually paved the way for something incredibly practical, the cognitive revolution of the 1970s. This was the massive turning point where deep abstract philosophy was transformed into tangible psychological healing. And this revolution was spearheaded by two absolute visionaries in modern therapy, Dr. Albert Ellis and Dr. Aaron T. Beck. They realized that if our minds are constantly interpreting reality, well then changing that interpretation could literally cure psychological suffering. But what's truly fascinating, and maybe a little unexpected, is the micro-narrative of how these two pioneers actually got there. Both Beck and Ellis suffered immense childhood illness and trauma. Ellis battled severe kidney issues and lifelong diabetes, which meant he spent huge, lonely chunks of his youth stuck in hospitals. Beck, at just 7 years old, suffered a life-threatening blood infection and actually had to undergo traumatic surgery without full anesthesia. Unsurprisingly, this led to severe, lingering phobias of abandonment and hospitals for him. But here is the remarkable beauty of their story. They didn't let these intense deficits break them. Instead, they leaned in. They used their own profound vulnerabilities to dissect and understand human cognition. They transformed their personal pain into a powerful foundation for healing millions of others. Dr. Albert Ellis was actually incredibly candid about this. He once noted, "I realize that my revolutionary zeal is at least partly driven by an attempt to overcome some of my feelings of inadequacy." By openly acknowledging his own feelings of inadequacy, he recognized his own subjective, flawed lens. And that immense self-awareness, that was the very first step toward creating a system of therapy that focuses entirely on uncovering and correcting those internal cognitive flaws. So to fix these cognitive flaws, Beck and Ellis built a beautifully structured model. They created what's known as the ABC framework. This is the absolute core of cognitive therapy. It's essentially a practical map that deconstructs exactly how our minds process reality on a daily, minute-by-minute basis. I promise you, once you understand this framework, you're honestly going to start spotting it everywhere in your own life. Let's see how this builds. A is the activating event. That's the objective thing that happens in the physical world. B represents your beliefs and interpretations about that event. And C is the consequence, meaning your resulting behaviors and emotions. Now, here is the grand illusion that traps most of us. We mistakenly believe that A directly causes C. We think the external event is what causes our internal emotion, right? But cognitive therapy proved that B, that invisible lens of our beliefs, is what actually triggers the consequence. Let's bring this to life with a situation we all know entirely too well. The activating event, A, is simply a car honking at you in traffic. That is the objective fact. Now, if your belief, your B, is that the driver is aggressively insulting you, well, the consequence is intense anger. Your blood boils, your grip tightens on the steering wheel. But if that exact same car honks and your belief is, oh man, maybe they're rushing to the hospital in an emergency, your consequence is calmness, maybe even a flash of empathy. The exact same objective reality led to two wildly different emotional consequences based entirely on the subjective lens of step B. Now, what's really interesting about this is how deeply layered that step B actually is. Our cognition is basically structured a lot like an onion. On the outer layer, we have automatic thoughts. These are those surface-level, fleeting reactions that pop into your head out of nowhere, like, oh no, I'm going to fail this test. Peeling back a layer, you find intermediate beliefs. Those are your underlying rules and assumptions about how the world works. And right at the center, core beliefs. These are deeply ingrained, really rigid views of the self, like I am worthless. Those quick, automatic thoughts actually act as defensive bodyguards for our most vulnerable core beliefs, stopping us from questioning the deep-rooted pain underneath. So how do we fix a flawed core belief? Well, this is where cognitive therapy introduces a brilliant tool called reality testing. The therapist acts almost like a detective, helping you gather concrete, empirical evidence to challenge those flawed beliefs. For example, if you have this irrational, overwhelming panic about an upcoming exam, and you're just convinced you will absolutely fail, the therapist will have you lay out the cold, hard facts. Let's look at your past test scores. Let's look at your study habits. Does the data actually support your panic? You are actively testing your internal phenomenon against external reality. Let's return to our original glasses metaphor for just a second to see why this is so profoundly empowering. Changing the objective reality is like spilling a glass of water on a book. It permanently alters or ruins the physical paper. And look, in life, there are physical tragedies, lost jobs, or broken relationships that change the object in ways we simply cannot reverse. But getting a new prescription clears your blurry vision without needing to change the physical book at all. We might not be able to control the harsh, unyielding objective events of the world, but we have ultimate, unbreakable control over the lens through which we process them. Which brings us to a really beautiful and perhaps surprising connection with literature. In Antoine de Saint-Exupéry's classic, The Little Prince, the fox softly explains to the prince, to tame is to establish ties. It means creating a connection. When we use cognitive therapy to analyze our automatic thoughts, to really dig into our deepest core beliefs, we're no longer running away from them. We're sitting down with them. By understanding exactly where our anxieties come from, we tame those harsh internal narratives. We turn them from terrifying monsters in the dark into understood, manageable parts of ourselves. So, this leaves us with one final, pretty vital thought. If phenomenology and cognitive therapy are right, if a vast majority, perhaps up to 95% of your daily reality, is dictated purely by the subjective glasses you wear, rather than the objective objects around you, well, isn't it time to check your prescription? Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me today. I challenge you to be a little more mindful of your own lens as you step back out into the world.